Good evening, everyone. Oh, come on. We're out in public for the first time in a while. Good evening. Jesse. My name is Melody Cookson. I am Managing Director of ACT1 Theater. We are based out of the old sanctuary at Alpharetta Presbyterian, right across from City Hall. That's our normal main stage. This is part of our partnership with the City of Alpharetta, and we have been known to do Shakespeare now for the last 3 years in the park at the behest of our Director of Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Services, Morgan Rogers, who is with us this evening. This is his brainchild, and we enjoy doing it for y'all. This year, we have had an interesting year, as you can imagine. We started out the year having one-night show of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and immediately shuttered, which broke our hearts because it was fabulous. If we can bring it back again, we will. In the meantime, we have postponed Little Shop of Horrors. We have had to cancel Sister Act because another theater snagged it for next year. And then White Christmas the musical has been moved to next year. So we hope that things get back to normal and you'll be able to join us for those shows. In the meantime, our next show, and it will either be live in person, if possible, otherwise we'll have a video subscription to It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio play. So it's a play within a play. And it's a cast of only 5. We're going to do a lot of Zoom rehearsals, but we're doing what we can to bring live theater back to touch y'all's lives. So thank you for bearing with us, and we're so happy that you're here tonight. Please tell your friends we're here tonight, tomorrow, and next Friday and Saturday. So this is an interesting part for me because this is the curtain speech where we're supposed to give all of the necessary information. For instance, I'm supposed to point out the fire exits. There are none. Then I'm supposed to tell you that we have concessions. We don't. And then how long the show runs. It is about an hour. And because of that, we do not have an intermission. So it won't be long, but you'll be thoroughly entertained in any case. And so I want to point out that this show was conceived by one of our longtime alumni, Jim Gray, and who will also be the narrator for you this evening. He has pulled together a really inspirational series of Shakespearean monologues and dialogues. So without further ado, please enjoy An Evening with Shakespeare and Friends.
What a night! What a night. I want to welcome all of you to an evening of Shakespeare and Friends. And what a beautiful night we have in Wills Park. Wait till you see the moon that comes up in a little while.
Yes, it's a lighting effect.
And that's thanks to Murray over here. Tonight we're going to do several short scenes out of Shakespeare's plays. You'll hear a sonnet. And later on you'll meet a couple of remarkable people from later years. So don't be surprised if you know something about some of these characters, and I think you'll probably find you'll hear some familiar words too. We hope tonight that you discover again, and maybe for the first time, the power of Shakespeare's words and the humanity of his characters. Our program is divided roughly into a few general themes tonight. The first one we've called openings, as in the opening of a play. Many of Shakespeare's plays tell you on the very first page what the whole play is going to be about. And so to open our show tonight, we will do the wonderful prologue, it's a classic, from the play Henry V, where Chorus, that's a character, asks us to imagine the vast fields of France with massed armies and kings fighting historic battles, all in our imagination in the confines of the little O of the Globe Theater.
Oh, for muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds should famine, sword and fire crouch for employment. Oh, pardon, gentles, all the flat, unraised spirits that have dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in a little place 1,000,000. And let us, ciphers to this great account, on your imaginary forces work. Suppose, within the girdle of these walls are now confined 2 mighty monarchies, whose high uprearing and abutting fronts the perilous narrow ocean parts asunder. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts, into 1,000 parts divide one man and make imaginary puissance. Think, when we talk of horses, that you see them printing their proud hoofs i' the receiving earth. For 'tis your thoughts now that must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping o'er times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply admit me, chorus to this history, who, prologue like your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play.
You can clap. All right, well, our next first pager features the well-known bad guy, Richard III. This very unpleasant and disfigured Richard tells us right off that he is no pretty boy, and you can see that. But instead, he is a very bad boy who plans to do some serious evil, and he does. The body count in Richard III is 12.
Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York. And all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front. And now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that's so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark as I halt by them. Why, I, in this weak, piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to spy my shadow in the sun and descant upon mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair, well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous, by drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate, the one against the other.
The first 14 lines of Romeo and Juliet outline the whole play. Family feuds, teenage love, and tragic, unintended consequences, and all in 2 hours.
households, both alike in dignity. In fair Verona, where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured Pedius overthrows, do with their death bury their parent strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their child's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage, the which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend.
All right, the next theme we picked for tonight is called Kids, and that's because it has something to do with parent-child relationships. And of course, there aren't a lot of children in Shakespeare, but probably Romeo and Juliet are the best well-known. So we're going to do 2 scenes for you tonight, back to back. The first one will be these 2 middle school teenage lovers falling in love in the famous balcony scene. You'll probably recognize some of that. And then shortly thereafter, after secretly marrying Romeo, Juliet suffers her father's rage when she won't marry Count Paris, the golden boy that her dad has picked out for her. And of course, you probably know that things go downhill pretty rapidly after that. And for keeping score, the body count in Romeo and Juliet is 6.
But soft, what light through yonder window breaks. It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief. But thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. Oh, it is my lady, oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her eye discourses, but I will answer it. I am too bold, 'tis not to me she speaks. 2 of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. What of her eyes? They in her head. The brightness of her cheek would shame those stars, as daylight doth a lamp, that her eyes in heaven would through the airy region stream so bright that birds would sing and think it were not night. See how she leans her cheek upon that hand? Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek.
Ay me.
She speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel, for thou art as glorious to this night being over my head as a winged messenger of heaven unto the white upturned wondering eyes of mortals who fall back and glare upon him as he bestrides the lazy pacing clouds and sails upon the bosom of the air.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father, refuse thy name. Or if thou will not but be sworn my love, and I shall no longer be a Capulet.
How now? Chopped logic, what is this? Proud? And I thank you? And I thank you not? Yet not proud, mistress minion. You thank me no thankings, nor proud me no prouds. But fettle your fine joints against Thursday next, to go with Paris to St. Peter's Church, or I will drag thee thither on a shuttle.
Oh, good my father, I beseech you on my knees. Hear me with patience, but to speak a word.
Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch. I tell thee what, get thee to the church a Thursday, or never after look me in the face. Speak not, reply not, do not answer me, my fingers itch. Wife, we scarce thought us blessed that God had lent us but this only child. But now I see this one is one too much, and that we have a curse in having her. God's bread, it makes me mad. Day, night, hour, tide, time, work, play, alone, in company, and still my care hath been to have her matched. And having now provided a gentleman of noble parentage, of fair demeans, youthful and nobly trained, stuffed, as they say, with honorable parts, and proportioned as one's thought would wish a man, and then to have a wretched puling fool, a whining mammet in her fortune's tender, to answer, I'm not wed, I cannot love, I am too young, I pray you, pardon me. But as you will not wed, I'll pardon you. Graze where you will, you shall not house with me. Look to it, think on't. I do not use to jest. Thursday is near. Lay hand on heart, advise, and you be mine? I'll give you to my friend. And you be not. Hang, beg, die, starve in the street, for by my soul I'll ne'er acknowledge thee, nor what is mine shall never do thee good. Trust to it, bethink you. I'll not be forsworn.
Is there no pity sitting in the clouds that sees into the bottom of my grief? Oh, sweet my mother, cast me not away. Delay this marriage a month, a week. Or if you do not, make my bridal bed in that dim monument where Tevil lies.
At the end of the promised 2 hours, the children are dead, along with several others, and we hear these closing words.
A gloomy peace this morning with it brings. Son,
For sorrow will not show his head. Go hence, and have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned, and some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo.
An old King Lear. He's ready to retire and divide his estate between his 3 daughters. And then he discovers that 2 of his daughters have schemed to strip him of his dignity, of his attendance, his property, and his crown. And the 3rd one he banned, and she was the good one. Lear is devastated. He is angry and rapidly slipping into madness after he's discovered this awful treachery. And of course, you know what might happen. Revenge and many deaths follow. The body count in King Lear is 10.
Oh, reason not the need. Our basest beggars are in the poorest things superfluous. Allow not nature more than nature needs. Man's life's cheap as beasts. If thou art a lady, if if only to go warm or gorgeous. Why, nature needs not what thou gorgeous wear'st, which scarcely keeps thee warm. But for true need, heavens, give me that patience I need. You see me here, you gods, a poor old man, it's full of age's grief, wretched in both. If it be you that stir these daughters' hearts against their father, fool me not so much to bear it tamely. Touch me with noble anger, and let not women's weapons, water drops, stain my man's cheeks. No, you unnatural hags! I shall have such revenges on you both, that the whole world shall... I will do such things. What they are yet I know not, but they shall be the terrors of the earth. You think I'll weep? I'll not weep, though I have full cause of weeping. This heart shall break into 100,000 flaws ere I'll weep. Oh, fool, I shall go mad.
And finally, for this theme, here is a parent-child scene from Hamlet. It's been played out for thousands of years. A loving, worried parent giving their best advice to a child about to head out into the world or go off to college. The words are from Polonius talking to his son, but I think you'll see it could also be a mother saying farewell to her child in 2020.
Yet here, Laertes, aboard, for shame. The wind sits in the shoulder of your sail, and you are stayed for. There. My blessing with thee. And these few precepts in thy memory look thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Those friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them unto thy soul with hoops of steel, but do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new hatch, unpledged comrade. Beware of entrance to a quarrel, but being in, bear it that the opposed may beware of thee. Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man, and they in France of the best rank and station are of the most select and generous chief in that. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. Thanks, Mom.
I'll see you at Thanksgiving.
Farewell. My blessing season this in thee.
Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets. Sonnet 18 is considered perhaps the most popular, the most beautiful, and if you think about it, perhaps the most passionate. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a day. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his fair complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou own'st, and death shall not brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. As long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Now we're going to move to some bleak times. The next three pieces are not about a happy place. The cynical Jaques in As You Like It tells us what he thinks of life. Predictable, bleak, meaningless. Let's listen.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant mewling and puking in his nurse's arms. Then, the whining schoolboy with his satchel and his shiny morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then, the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then, a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in a quarrel, seeking the bubble, reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. And then, the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wide saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again towards childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.
John of Gaunt delivers one of the most famous speeches, almost an elegy to his England that he loves. But he's talking about the decline of England at the hand of a very weak king, King Richard II. John mourns for this blessed plot, this England, his beloved homeland, which is slipping into ruin.
This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, the seat of Mars, this other Eden, semi-paradise, this fortress, built by nature for herself against infection and the hand of war, this happy breed of men, this little world,
this precious stone set in the silver sea, which served in the office of a wall, or as a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happier lands. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, this nurse, this teeming womb of royal kings, feared by their breed and famous for their birth, renowned for their deeds as far from home for Christian service and true chivalry, as is the sepulchre and stubborn jewelry of the world's ransom, blessed Mary's Son. This land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land, dear for her reputation through the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it, like to a tenement or pelting farm. England, bound in by the triumphant sea, whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame, with inky blots and rotten parchment bonds. That England that was wont to conquer others hath made a shameful conquest of itself.
How can we do Bleak without Macbeth? This is the moment late in the play when Macbeth has just heard of his wife's suicide, and he confronts the futility, the emptiness, and the evil of his own life. But it doesn't stop the many bodies that follow. The body count in the Scottish play is 10.
Wherefore was that cry?
The Queen, my lord, is dead!
She should have died hereafter. Would have been time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Okay, let's lighten it up a little bit. There is a play within a play in Hamlet that is contrived to catch the murderer of Hamlet's father. Hamlet instructs his troupe of players with some of the best stage direction that has ever been written. It's good forever. Tonight we're going to pretend that all of you are a cast of community theater actors, a lot like us, meeting a famous playwright director as you begin rehearsals for his play. But I'm going to tell you, here, speaking Hamlet's words, is your director. And she is very demanding. Pay attention.
Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you.
trippingly on the tongue. But if you do mouth it as many of your players do, I would as lief the town crier spoke my lines. And do not saw the air with your hand thus, but use all gently. For in the torrent, the tempest, may I say the whirlwind of passion, one must acquire and beget a temperance to give it smoothness. Oh, it offends me to the soul to hear some robustious, hairy-wigged, pated fellow tear a passion to a tanner's, to very rags, to split the ears of the groundlings, who, for the most part, are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. I should have such a fellow whipped for doing termagant, and out Herod. Pray you, avoid it. But not too tame neither, but let your own discretion be your tutor. Suit the word, suit the action to the word to the action. For in this special overstep, not the modesty of nature. And let those who play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them. For there be of them who will themselves laugh, to set upon some quantity of barren spectators to laugh too. And in the meantime, some necessary question of the play be yet to be considered. That is villainous, and a most pitiful ambition of the fool that uses it. Go. Make you ready.
I love that speech. Hamlet is often called Shakespeare's greatest play. So let's see a little bit more. Early in the play, Hamlet learns that his father may have been murdered. So he visits a graveyard, hoping to meet the ghost of his father and find out the truth. So he goes to the graveyard, meets the ghost, and is sent back out by the ghost to avenge the murder.
I am your father's spirit, doomed to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast in fires, until the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. But that I am forbid to tell the secrets of my prison house, I could unfold a tale whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make thy two eyes like stars start from their spears, thy combined and knotted locks depart, and each particular hair to stand on end, like quills of the fretful porpentine. But this eternal blazon must not be to ears of flesh and blood. List, list, oh list! If thou didst ever thy dear father love, revenge his foul and most unnatural murder.
Murder?
Murder most foul.
Later in the play, Hamlet's back in the graveyard. He walks through with his friend Horatio, and he walks by a gravedigger who has just discovered a skull. Alas, whose do you think it might be?
There's a skull now! This skull has lain in the earth 23 years.
Whose was it?
a pestilence on him for a mad rogue. He poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, is Yorick's skull, the king's jester.
This?
Hey, that.
Let me see. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times. And now, how abhorred in my imagination it is. My gorge rins at it. Here hung those lips I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your jibes now? Your gambols, your songs, your feats of merriment that were wont to set the table at a roar? Not one now to mock your own grinning?
We watch Hamlet slowly going crazy during this play. His girlfriend, Ophelia, sees it. We watch it. And she's beside herself. But she's powerless to help him.
Oh, what a noble mind is here o'erthrown. The courtiers, scholars, soldiers, eye-tongued sword, the very expectancy and rose of the fair state, the glass of fashion, and the mould of form, the observed of all observers, quite down, and I, of ladies most dejected and wretched, having sucked the honey of his music vows, now see that most noble and sovereign reason, like sweet bells, jangled, out of tune and harsh. Oh, that unmatched form and feature of blown youth, blasted with ecstasy. Oh, woe is me, to have seen what I have seen, seen what I have seen.
No sampling of Shakespeare would be complete without his most famous soliloquy, "To be or not to be?" Hamlet muses to himself about life and death and the consequences of both.
To be or not to be. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more. And as by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of such long life. For who would endure the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, or the spurns the patient merit of the unworthy take, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin. Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? But that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us bear those ills we have, rather than fly to those we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all. And thus is the native hue of resolution sicklied o'er by the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action.
Strong stuff. The next two scenes are from The Merchant of Venice. There was rampant anti-Semitism in Venice and in Europe at the time of this play, and Shakespeare takes us into the darkest places of hate and revenge and the inequality of justice and mercy. Antonio is a wealthy merchant of Venice who has borrowed money from Shylock, a Jewish moneylender. The collateral for the loan is a pound of flesh, which no one thinks would ever be forfeited. Shylock and Antonio hate each other, mainly because one is a Christian and one is a Jew. In our first scene, Shylock is asked, "What's a pound of flesh good for?" And he gives an answer for the ages.
Oh, Antonio. There I have another bad match. A bankrupt, a prodigal, who dare scarce show his head on the Rialto. A beggar that was used to come so smug unto the mart. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to call me a usurer. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to lend money for a Christian courtesy. Let him look to his bond.
Why, if he should forfeit, I'm sure that will not take his flesh. What good's that?
To bait fish withal. Huh. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, and heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands? organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed with the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winters and summers as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. And if a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why, revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard. But I will better the instruction.
Later in the play, Antonio's fortunes meet disaster. The loan cannot be repaid. A trial is held, and Shylock demands payment of the pound of flesh to which he is legally entitled. He turns down an offer of double the amount of money owed and demands his bond, which will cause the death of Antonio. Portia, disguised as an esteemed lawyer, adjudicates the case, expecting Shylock will show mercy. He asks why he should, and hears her beautiful response. But he is unmoved and still demands his bond.
Are you acquainted with the difference that holds this present question in the court?
I am informed thoroughly of the cause. Which is the merchant here and which the Jew?
Antonio and old Shylock both stand forth.
Is your name Shylock?
Shylock is my name.
Of a strange nature is the suit you do follow, yet 'tis such rule that Venetian law cannot impugn you as you do perceive. You stand within his danger, do you not?
Aye, so he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then the Jew must be merciful.
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. It is mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute of awe and majesty wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth show like its gods, when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us do see salvation. We do pray for mercy. And that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. I've spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which, if thou follow, this strict court of Venice must needs give sentence against the merchant there.
deeds upon my head. I crave the law, the penalty and forfeit of my bond.
When the play ends, Antonio is still alive, his fortune restored. But Shylock has been stripped of his fortune and his livelihood. He has lost his daughter to a Christian and made to disavow his precious Jewish faith and convert to Christianity. The merciful, gentle rain from heaven did not fall on Shylock. Never in the course of human conflict was so much owed to so many by so few. Winston Churchill said those moving words about the airmen who fought against unbelievable odds to win the Battle of Britain in World War II. Our final scene tonight is about the power of words, moving words, inspirational words spoken by warriors and great leaders. A prime minister and a president will share the stage with a king. King Henry V speaks some of the most inspirational lines in all literature. The play chronicles a defining moment in English history that helped shape its destiny. The Battle of Agincourt in France in 1415. Henry's tired army of 5,000 men defeated and destroyed a French force 3 to 4 times their number, and King Henry's calls to arms before battles are visceral. Winston Churchill was a Shakespearean scholar and an actor who loved this play and knew it intimately. He called the soon-to-be Sir Laurence Olivier back from active duty as an RAF pilot during the war to direct and star in a film of Henry V. Churchill knew it would be an inspiration for the British people in the darkest days of World War II, and it was shown all over England. Churchill was infused with Shakespeare, its Elizabethan cadences, its the grandeur of its oratory. So it's no surprise that Churchill's own soaring speeches in World War II echo the soul-stirring words of King Henry. The following scene intercuts the words of Henry, the uplifting speeches of Winston Churchill, and the somber declaration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt the day after Pearl Harbor, committing the United States as an ally in the defeat of tyranny.
Mr. Speaker, right honorable members of the House of Commons, we are in the preliminary stage of one of the greatest battles in history. We know that we are in action at many points in Norway and in Holland, that we have to be prepared in the Mediterranean, that the air battle is continuous, and that many preparations have to be made here at home. I would say to the House, as I have said to those who have joined this government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word: victory! Victory at all cost, victory in spite of all terror, victory! no matter how long and hard the road may be, for without victory, there's no survival.
Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more, or close the wall up with our English dead. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the actions of the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard-favored rage, then lend to the eye a terrible aspect. For there is none of you here that hath not noble luster in your eyes. I see you standing like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, God for Harry, England, and St. George.
The battle for France has ended. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends all that we have, our own English life, and all that we have known and cared for. The whole fury and might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us. Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be freed, and the world may move forward into bright, sunlit uplands. But if we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, and the long continuity of our English history and our Commonwealth, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted science. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if the British Commonwealth and its empire last 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse himself at the name of Crispian. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispian's. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars, and say, these wounds I had on Crispian's day. This story shall the good man teach his son. And Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day till the ending of the world, but we in it will be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he who sheds his blood with me today shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day will gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed will think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whilst any speaks who fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day.
I have myself full confidence that if all do their duty, nothing is neglected, and if the best preparations are made as they are being made, we will once more prove ourselves able to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, and to outlive the menace of tyranny. If necessary for years, if necessary, alone.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The American people have formed their opinions and well understand the implications of the very life and safety of our nation. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. I believe I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that not only will we defend ourselves to the uttermost, but we will make very certain this form of treachery never again endangers us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking from the fact that our people, our interests, and our territories are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God.
Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall into the grip of the Gestapo and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island home, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Our revels now have ended. These our actors, as I foretold you, have vanished into thin air. They were spirits. We are such things as dreams are made of, and our lives are rounded with a sleep.